There are two very distinct halves to this short talk. In the second half, I will be sharing with you some behind-the-scenes personal information. However, the talk begins with a very chirpy bloke wearing a hat. Minna! Thought to get away your Victorio! How you doing, my lovelies? Here, apparently this is being filmed and broadcast around the world, and there's some folk out there in dark corners that have never heard of Cornwall. So I've got to explain about our gorgeous granite kingdom that thrusts its little horn-shaped peninsula out into the Atlantic and is kidged onto England by its rear end. Here's the thing. Cornwall constitutes less than 0.0002% of this planet's land mass. We are but a speck, my lovelies. However, of all mineral species ever discovered anywhere on the planet, more than 90% can be found here. This astonishing geological diversity and the search for the treasures under the earth have shaped our culture. Our language, our songs, our sport, our very identity. And 10 years ago, the good folk up to UNESCO, they recognised that 4,000 years of Cornish mining had contributed to key elements of high-pressure steam pumping that catalysed the Industrial Revolution around the entire planet, and they put us on that list up there with the Taj Mahal and the Great Wall of China and the pyramids and all such. Our landscape. How about that? And Cornish Mining World Heritage Site said, anyone got a big idea to celebrate the 10th birthday of that designation? And the big idea went pop, fully fledged, here. How don't we build the largest mechanical puppet ever made in Britain, a 40-foot metal miner, and steam him all the way the lengths of the landscape? What could possibly go wrong? So, first thing I did, went to see my long-term collaborator and friend, Hal Sylvester. Can we do it, Hal? Impossible, he said. Let's do it. So, there's me and Hal with the first iteration of the puppet. And we took this puppet to see a great and wise engineering consultant. And he said, you're going to need £300,000. You're going to need 2 years of build. And there are only 3 people in Britain who've got the expertise. To which I said, we got £80,000, we got 9 months, and it's me and he. 3 types of impossibility. You do not have enough time. You do not have enough money. You do not have the expertise. Game on. We took our puppet up to the good folk in Cambridgeshire, England, and in the grey-suited boardroom of Volvo, we did our puppet show, and they gave us this big beauty of a beast. Actually, this is the 180. They gave us the 220, 2 notches higher. We brought it home to Cornwall, and we took it up to the Imris clay dry, the only space we could find indoors, with 12 metres clearance to get building. And there we are, all alone, me, Hal, Denzel, and a big toy. Well, this photo is the most terrifying photo I know. You just think, oh, it looks interesting. They're going over there, bodging a bit of this. And oh, look, they're doing trial and error, and engineering brains are working. And yeah. This was in May, and he had to be out on the road by July. 2 months to go. Round about this time was when it became clear that we were not just building the largest mechanical puppet ever made in Britain. We were also in charge of 26 separate public events along the length of the landscape, with all of the traffic management, crowd safety issues completely outside of our experience or skill set. Our event manager quit, couldn't handle it. Denzel rang me up, he said, Will, these extra health and safety requirements, we are now at least £80,000 over budget. Rob Higgs rang me up and he said, you aren't even halfway to where you need to be. It can't be done. You do not have enough time, you do not have enough money, you do not have the expertise. What would you do, my lovelies? Pull, run, get out? How can you? Look at the expectation you've set up. Everyone knows that what's coming is the largest mechanical puppet ever made in Britain in a couple of weeks' time. And what you've got is this. Woo! Okay, by some of the most extraordinary miracles of endeavor and industry, by blood, sweat, and tears of a team of amazing human beings, we turned that into that. Now, this photo is the day we launched, and it's taken just before he very first opened his eyes. And that's significant, because what people don't know is that until 20 minutes before that photo was taken, we were under a health and safety prohibition. And if I had gone ahead, I would have been arrested. And the final item in the list of health and safety non-compatibility, this helmet. Because although it worked the last shift down South Crofty, it's no longer in reg. That's the level we were dealing with at that point. But we knew if we could just get him up there once, he would work, and sure enough, it did. And every single time we transformed him, there were queues of people with tears in their eyes wanting to tell us their family stories about the husband who never came back from work, about great auntie Dorothy who worked as a bowelmaid all her life, and so on and so on. And one of the reasons we knew it would work was death and resurrection. Whilst I don't have a great deal of time for religious mumbo-jumbo, I know that as a species, both genetically and culturally, we are hardwired to certain archetypes. And death and resurrection feature in every myth and every story of every culture of all time. And that's what we took people through deliberately, a transformative journey paying tribute to 4,000 years of endeavor. And people got it, didn't they? Here's a picture of 15,000 people on Lemon Key, Truro. Originally, the Cornish Mining World Heritage Site said, will you reach a total of 7,000 people, all told? We said, we can do better than that, we'll get up around the 60. What actually happened? 150,000 people turned out. That is roughly 1 in 3 of the population of Cornwall. And we set ourselves a massive target of reaching 1.3 million people through media. Well, the company we employed to track this broke their algorithm when they hit 112 million and gave up. 104 countries perceived, watched, engaged with our big boy. And then, if you're going to talk about the economic impact in this poorest region in Europe, I'll give you a little example. In Penzance, a town of 22,000 people, 28,000 turned out to be part of it. They reckon the spend in Penzance that day, the additional spend was about 500,000. 3 pubs sold out of beer. The pasty shop had its very best trading in 100 years of business. By the way, our fee for turning up, £5,000. Steep learning curve. So, however, for me, more important than any of that is this sort of thing. And we had lots of this kind of feedback. Hey, what if we have been responsible for inspiring the next generation of engineers and inventors? Isn't that something special? I think it's not too great a claim to say we got under the skin. By the way, this is not a part of my anatomy. This is a son of a Cornish miner who wanted to pay tribute to his father in this way. It's a triumph, isn't it? It's a success, isn't it? Depends how you measure success. By the time we got to September, the real scale of the debt began to be apparent. Invoices thundering in, partly from his own success, traffic management, public health and safety, security, public toilets, medical provision, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds coming in, and no way of paying any of it. And just me alone with a laptop. No company, because I couldn't pay anybody anymore. It was gone. All dead, all gone. And negotiating that next period of time was quite simply the darkest and most difficult time of my life. So by the time I got to March last year, I was very, very depressed and suicidal. Why do I choose to share this? Yep, partly it's personal. It's difficult being the celebrity guy in the hat when people don't know that kind of backstory. But actually, more than that, most of us will experience mental health and emotional issues at some point. We need to find ways to talk about this. Maybe there's somebody out there who might even find my story of self-rescue helpful. Here it is. It's quite simple. You know what? Depression is the inevitable aftermath of anxiety. All that heightened emotion and hormone, and then you slump. So, what's anxiety? Anxiety is fear of the future. Which future? The one you're holding on to, the one you want to be true. And if it's not going to get true, you get anxious, you get fearful. And so it knocks on. How can you overcome anxiety? You don't overcome it, you learn about it. You look at it and you go, that's interesting. Look at the way he gets anxious around that. That's interesting. Look at the way he responds with fear and anger around that. And the more you can be third-party detached, like a scientist watching an ant, or a turtle, not to change, but to understand. You get to the place where you realize that all of those negative emotions are not an inevitable consequence of the external reality. They're in you. But they're not who you are. You are not that. And those negative emotions will come and they will go. You see, we have one thing very, very wrong. We all assume that if I can change the world, then I can be happy. Actually, if I can become happy, the world changes. That's it. So, bit by bit, moment by moment, because after all, my lovelies, all we have is this moment and the next moment. Bit by bit, surviving moment, recovery and resurrection becomes possible. And now we're at a place, we have a plan for the man engine to return. And maybe he will once again be deemed a great success. But for me, my measure of that success has to be the degree to which I remain detached from the applause and the awards and the tinsel, as well as the potential debt and depression. So, should we finish off by seeing what Mr. Chirpy has to say? Ladies and gentlemen, 2018, the largest mechanical puppet in the UK will tour all of the industrial Evershed sites from Cornwall and beyond in the Resurrection Tour. Carobus Vegan!